the ink wasn't dry on this ruling before Obamacare supporters said, well, the Supreme Court's ruling in King v. Burwell shows that the Obamacare debate is over. The debate over repealing Obamacare is over. And I think that the debate over repealing Obamacare has been declared over so many times at this point that I've lost count, so many times over the past 5 years. It's true that Obamacare supporters dodged a bullet with King v. Burwell, because what the law actually does, the way the ACA was written and approved by both chambers of Congress and signed into law by the president, it gave states the power to block major portions, major provisions of that law, to block the health insurance subsidies that are supposed to flow through health insurance exchanges, to block the employer mandate within their state, to block, to a large extent, the individual mandate. The law gave states these powers. And Obamacare supporters dodged a bullet because 34 or 38 states, depending on how you count, did not establish a health insurance exchange, which they needed to do in order for those provisions to take effect. So they effectively exercised those vetoes that Congress gave them over portions of this act. And if blocking the veto, or blocking the subsidies, vetoing those subsidies would have had the effect not of increasing the cost of Obamacare coverage, because subsidies don't reduce the cost of coverage. They just shift that cost from the premium payer to the taxpayer. Eliminating those subsidies would have revealed the full cost of this coverage to Obamacare enrollees, to enrollees in healthcare.gov. And that's what the Obama administration and its supporters feared. I don't really call them ACA supporters because they don't really support that law as written. They've rewritten it so many times. That's the bullet they dodged. When John Roberts said that he was going to rewrite this law in order to make it work, which is basically what he did, he said if the plaintiff's arguments in this case are strong, theirs is the most natural reading of the pertinent statutory phrase. Those are direct quotes from the Chief Justice. This is not a direct quote, but I'll summarize. He said, but if we read the law that way, I mean, if we actually apply what Congress actually said to this situation right here, then the law wouldn't work, so we're going to interpret it some other way. They dodged a bullet when he did that because without those subsidies, people would have seen the full cost of this law and they would have demanded that Congress reopen it. Nevertheless, the repeal debate, the Obamacare repeal debate, is not over, and supporters of this law just don't seem to understand why. Or at least maybe they understand, but they don't want to let on that they understand. And there are a lot of reasons why. One of them is that this law remains unpopular. More than 6 years after the first draft of Obamacare was introduced in the House in June of 2009, it remains unpopular. It's as unpopular now as it was when it was enacted more than 5 years ago. And this is a year and a half into implementation, a year and a half after people have been receiving the benefits under this law as rewritten by the Obama administration and the Supreme Court. And a lot of the costs of this law haven't even taken effect yet. The Cadillac tax. There's some premium hikes on the horizon for 2016. There could be even more as some of the temporary programs that are designed to mitigate the adverse selection that Obamacare encourages as those expire. This law has been unpopular for 6 solid years, and you know what? Unpopular laws in a democracy are always up for repeal. That's always a live issue when it comes to an unpopular law. In addition, the Obamacare repeal debate is going to keep going on because Obamacare hurts the sick. Yes, it throws lots and lots of money at health insurance and does insure more people. But it threw millions out of their health plans in 2013, including cancer patients and others with severe high-cost illnesses, leaving them with inferior coverage. It threatened to throw millions more out of their health insurance plans again until the Supreme Court amended Obamacare and King v. Burwell. And it's going to continue to threaten, but notwithstanding that ruling, it's going to continue to threaten coverage for cancer patients and others so long as this law remains on the books. And it's not just opponents of the law that are noticing this. If you look at the January 29th issue of the New England Journal of Medicine, the lead article is about how Obamacare is encouraging insurers pushing insurers into a race to the bottom by jettisoning coverage important to HIV patients. And there are other studies that have found that The same thing is happening with other high-cost chronic conditions like mental illness, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and cancer. This has happened in other markets with Obamacare-like bans on discrimination on the basis of pre-existing conditions. I could give you examples from New York State, where they've had community rating for years. I could give you an example from the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program. I could give examples from the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program of how coverage has eroded for the sickest patients because the community rating rules that Obamacare puts in place and were in place in other places encourage a race to the bottom and encourage insurers to avoid, mistreat, and ultimately dump the sick. So instead of secure health insurance for the sick, Obamacare increased incentives for insurers to do just that, to engage in that race to the bottom where they avoid, mistreat, and dump the sick. And it doesn't matter that it's only happening with a few insurers now. I think the New England Journal of Medicine article said a quarter of the insurance plans that they studied displayed these characteristics, where they were dropping this coverage that's important to the sick, because all insurers will have to follow suit. And the race to the bottom happens, and the supporters of Obamacare will blame this on insurance companies, greedy insurance companies who don't want to pay medical bills for sick people. They can do that, but it is Obamacare that forces insurance companies into this race to the bottom, and this is crucial, that race to the bottom happens even if insurers aren't trying to discriminate against the sick. Another reason the repeal debate is going to keep on going is because Obamacare and the way it has been implemented demeans voters, and they feel it. They sense that it demeans them. The way that Obamacare's architects designed and sold and enacted and implemented this law has been a 6-year-long and ongoing string of insults to the intelligence, the compassion, the dignity, and the sense of fair play of Americans who oppose this very bad policy. Obamacare's architects have lied to the public. They've called voters stupid. They've called opponents evil. President Obama and the Supreme Court have rewritten the ACA now in so many ways that Congress never had the votes to approve, and in ways that have disempowered and disenfranchised Obamacare opponents. This debate is going to continue because there are ways to provide more secure health coverage to the sick. No one wants the pre-Obamacare world where government had already been making health insurance less secure. Even so, health insurance markets, even despite all the things that government was doing to make health insurance less secure, such as an employer-based health insurance system where if you get sick and can't work anymore, you lose your coverage. I mean, this is the horse the government decided to back with a huge tax exclusion that other forms of insurance don't get. A type of insurance that disappears when you get sick and can't work anymore. Even in spite of that tax exclusion for employer-sponsored insurance and all the other things that government has done to cripple private health insurance markets, they were still innovating to develop products that made health insurance more secure. One example is guaranteed renewability. Another example is pre-existing condition insurance, an innovation that was happening right underneath Congress's nose as they were debating the Affordable Care Act. It was first introduced in late 2008. They were getting regulatory approval. The United Health, which introduced this product, pre-existing condition insurance, was getting regulatory approvals in early 2009. And what is this product? It's basically an insurance product where if you pay 20% of the premium, you don't even have to buy the health insurance plan. If you pay 20% of the premium, then you buy the option to purchase that health insurance plan at any time, no matter how sick you get. Even if you develop a pre-existing condition, you pay the same rates as anyone else. Effectively, it's health insurance coverage. Health insurance coverage at 20% of the cost of a typical health insurance plan. This was available in 2008. There are further innovations that markets were likely to develop that enabled insurers to compete, encouraged insurers to compete to cover the sick rather than to avoid them, as Obamacare encourages them to do. But Obamacare destroyed those innovations. If Obamacare were such an improvement, I mean, think about it, if Obamacare were such an improvement over the status quo ante, over the individual health insurance market, as it existed before Obamacare, then why do, as Christy will probably tell you, 65% of healthcare.gov enrollees want the freedom to purchase their pre-Obamacare plans? Obviously, something's amiss there. These innovations, though, aren't coming back until we get rid of Obamacare specifically as community rating price controls, and that's why the debate is going to keep happening. Now, what should Congress do in the wake of King v. Burwell? It should stay focused on what it has always been focused on with regard to Obamacare, which is repealing it. Because we're not going to get lower cost, secure health insurance for the sick until this law is off the books. That's actually more important right now after the Supreme Court's ruling in King v. Burwell. Because with that ruling, the President and the Supreme Court just created entitlements and imposed taxes on 70 million Americans, employers and individuals, that no Congress ever approved, and from which, in fact, Congress specifically exempted those 70 million employers and individuals. The fact that tens of millions of Americans are living under tax, or subjected right now to taxes that Congress never approved, makes it all the more important that Congress repeal Obamacare. King v. Burwell shows that what we're living under right now is an illegitimate law. I like to say the Affordable Care Act isn't perfect, but gosh, it's a lot better than what we've got.